Yo, what up? It's your boy Diego, aka ChicanoGrease. We're on location at my shop in Phoenix, Arizona called Vinyl Therapy, and you're on Daryl DTV, and we're going to talk about 5 records in my collection that I will never sell. The first record in my collection that I'll never get rid of, with Father's Day just passing, and my dad no longer here with us, I'm going to start off with War's Greatest Hits. This takes me back to when I was a kid. He used to do yard work and take his whole stereo system outside and hook it up before he would do the yard, and he would blast this joint from front to back, no skips, and it just reminded me of, you know, how happy he was doing the yard in his element, and brings back fond memories of my pops. So miss you, Pops. War's Greatest Hits, never get rid of it. My next record that I will never get rid of is dear to me because it reminds me of my gramps, another man who was very influential to me. This record is by Perez Prado. My tata was a huge mambo fan, and I just grew up watching him cook tamales and make empanadas for us, just always moving and just getting busy. So brings back good memories of watching him. Again, happy in his element too, and so this record is real dear to me as well. See you when I see you, Tata. Never get rid of this joint for you. Alright, now we're on to my third record. My third record is an instant classic in the Chicano lowrider culture. You haven't cruised the boulevard anywhere in the country or anywhere in the Southwest really without hearing this man's joints. We're going to go with Brentwood, Oogum Boogum. This takes me back to being a kid. My dad had a 63 Impala, and I was a youngster, and he would just blast these while we would cruise all over town. He had an 8-track player, and he would just switch them in and out, in and out. It just seemed like Brentwood was always bumping through our speakers anywhere we went, and it just reminded me again of just being a kid. You know, my dad had a car that bounced, and 15 years later I realized, it was hydraulics, and then I got into building lowriders, and this also was my soundtrack to my cruising days as well, as a Duke's Car Club member. So I will never forget where I first heard Brentwood, and it was in my dad's car, my 63 Impala, when I was a kid. So this is very dear to me as well. I've cruised in my own rides with my own children as well, so I will never get rid of this Brentwood Oogum Boogum album. Pretty dope. Alright, we're on to my 4th record in my collection that I will never sell. And this one has special sentimental value to me. It is Manu Diango, So Makosa. Now this has some strong family ties. My mom and my dad met at the Record Hops here at Immaculate Heart. They had a really dope, legendary DJ, Stuart Sherman. Shout out Stuart Sherman. He was one of the DJs that broke this joint out here in Phoenix, Arizona. And growing up, I always heard about this banger, this floor filler of a joint called So Makosa. And my uncle Frank, who was a b-boy back then, from a crew called the Funkonauts, he would get busy. Word has it, he would get busy to this joint. So I always heard this joint, could never find it. It took me like 20 years. And then one day, I linked up with my man right here, Daryl D, and he was like, yo, hey, come to the crib. I got some things that I want to move around. If you give me a hand, there'll be lunch involved. Cool. I was like, yeah, man, you don't need to bribe me with no lunch or anything like that. I said, I'm going to help you just because you're my boy. So I went. We did what we had to do. We moved some things around, and he was like, yo, I got a stack of records right there. I might be selling them. Look through them, see if there's anything you want. And I was like digging through them, and I found a couple of gems. As you know, we all know Daryl D got them gems. And I was like, man, you know what I'm really looking for? I'm really looking for So Makosa. And dude, you pulled it out, and you showed it to me, the record, and you were like, yo, is this one that you're looking for? I was like, that's the one. I said, man, and I told him the whole backstory. He goes, well, I'll tell you what, man, just for helping me, you can have it. And I was like, what? It took me 20 years to get this joint, and coming from you, Daryl D, it means a lot. Brought back some memories of hearing those old discussions of the heydays of the record hops, and it just was dope, man. So thank you, I appreciate you. This is definitely one record that I'll never get rid of. So my fifth record in my collection that I'll never get rid of is actually real dear to me as well. As everybody knows, or if you don't know, I'm huge into house music, and I'm very studious on the things that I'm into, and house music is one of them. So for me, Frankie Knuckles is the godfather of house. Well, house originated from Chicago, and it was predominantly a black music art form, and I have a huge amount of appreciation for it. It's shaped my life, it's shaped my DJ career, and this is a banger that not a lot of people have. It's highly sought after, and I'm glad it's in my collection. This is a remix by Frankie Knuckles of Jamie Principle's Your Love. Came out in 1987. For a while out there in Chicago, this was like the anthem. Everybody was, there was mixtapes going around the city, but nobody knew who this dude was. There's actually a documentary out there, and a couple of cats were saying, yeah, we thought it was just some dude from Europe, and he just laid down these vocals on these dope track. Well, they found out later, it was a dude from the same side of the city as some of the early house pioneers. So Frankie Knuckles got his hands on it and put his touch on it, and like the godfather of house can only do, he put out a heavy banger. So Jamie Principle's Your Love will always be in my collection and in my crates. I still spin it to this day. And to mention, DJ International Records is a huge label out of Chicago, Illinois, and we all know Chicago's synonymous with house music. Chip E, Steve Silk Hurley, plenty of pioneers of early house music have put out various tracks on this label. So when you see this label, you think of Chicago. And in fact, there was a conversation in this documentary that I was watching about the history of house music, where it was Chip E, Jesse Saunders, and Steve Silk Hurley, and they were having a conversation in regards to this Jamie Principle joint right here. They were saying how it was a Chicago anthem, and every car up and down Rush was just blaring this joint. And of course, the one and only Frankie Knuckles put his added touches on this remix of Jamie Principle's Your Love. And this is the last record and fifth record that I will never sell out of my collection. Alright, and those were the 5 records out of my collection that I will never sell. These 5 records, I believe, are some of the most influential records that are in my collection that have shaped me as a person, as a man, and as a DJ. And I'm forever going to be grateful for these records and these artists and all the history that I have in connection with these records. And for that reason, and that reason alone, is why these 5 records will always be in my crates, and I will never sell them. Thanks for having me. Peace.